J.Lo and Mariah Carey have been very obvious rivals in the music industry for as long as I can remember. So naturally, when one of J.Lo's assistants left to work with Mariah Carey, J.Lo was not having it. Kelly had been a longtime assistant to J.Lo before bolting to join Mariah Carey in 2013, and reportedly the key factor in the departure was J.Lo's boyfriend at the time, Casper Smart. Smart allegedly had free reign throughout the house and would treat J.Lo's staff very poorly with no resistance, and that upset Gilly, a source told Radar Online. Casper always insisted that Jennifer's staff call him Mr. Smart, and even demanded that they get him drinks, do things for him. That was not their job. According to several of J.Lo's former staff members, J.Lo earned herself the nickname Paylo because she paid her staff around 50% less than they could make elsewhere. And this rumor's been going on for a year, so I'm talking like way back in 2003 when J.Lo was spotted in Vegas with boyfriend at the time, Ben Affleck. Well, this was the first time. They had a big win. Ben was like, yeah, I'll tip the dealer $2,000. But before the dealer could take that reward, J.Lo was like, $200 instead. Now, folks have asked J.Lo, like, why do you pay your staff so little? She's like, I had to work hard to earn my money. Everybody else should too. And like, honestly, that's just so embarrassing for her. I think if you had to work hard to earn your money, you'd want to make it easier for others because you know how hard it is. It's just entitled behavior. It's gross. Come on, girl. Jacob Manoukian began chauffeuring J.Lo and her then husband Mark Anthony around in 2005 before eventually being promoted to Lopez's staff full-time as her personal head of security and transportation in early 2011, at least according to the sources at TMZ. By September of that year, though, Manoukian was gone from J.Lo's staff, after which he filed a lawsuit for breach of contract and wrongful termination, and this was against J.Lo, her company, and her manager, Benny Medina. Manoukian claimed his agreement with J.Lo included a $72,000 yearly salary with additional production pay, potentially increasing his compensation to $200,000 per year. According to E, however, he claimed that he received no production pay or overtime whatsoever. CNN further reported that the suit claimed he dealt with intolerable labor conditions, such as working more than 40 hours a week and being prevented from taking proper meal periods, which forced him to resign. J.Lo filed a countersuit against Manoukian, seeking $20 million in damages, claiming the former driver was allegedly blackmailing her for $2.8 million, as he threatened to expose private information he overheard when chauffeuring her. The countersuit also alleged that Manoukian became hostile and angry after J.Lo rejected his desire to lead and appoint members to organize a security team for a music video, at least according to The Hollywood Reporter. J.Lo's countersuit was dismissed in December of 2012, and they wound up settling Manoukian's original lawsuit for undisclosed terms in February of 2013. So back in 2002, J.Lo starred in the romantic comedy Made in Manhattan. She was all over the world. She was promoting this, but when she was in London, people were talking, and not about the movie, about her demands. She had very interesting encounters with hotel staff. So she was staying at the Metropolitan Hotel. They were like, okay, this girl is like a class A diva. The hotel staff was like astounded by her lavish and extravagant demands because it was reaching levels they had never seen before. She was asking for thousands of pounds of lemon-scented candles, and also, even if she's traveling a short distance, J.Lo's not walking down the block. She had 7 limousines escort her to lunch at a restaurant that was only 200 yards away. This isn't the only report of her diva behavior though. In 2012, reports surfaced that staff working for her, yeah, don't make eye contact with me, don't speak with me. While having work done on her San Fernando Valley home, she was like, yeah, any of the helpers, the drivers, the contractors, do not interact with me. Technically, these rumors were never confirmed, I do have to say that, but like, come on. And reportedly, when flying first class, nobody's gonna bother her, not even the flight attendant, and like, that is their job. One time, somebody was like, oh, would you like a drink? And she did not answer. She instead turned to her assistant and said, please tell him I'd like a Diet Coke and lime. Now, once again, like, girl, you can just talk to somebody, it's not that big of a deal. If you don't want to be interrupted, put on headphones like everybody else. So, J.Lo once had somebody fired for being a fan. Preta Daj just happened to be cleaning J.Lo's hotel room in Germany during her big 2012 world tour. And like, she was a fan. She was like, hey, like, can I please get your autograph? And 2 of the assistants were like, oh no, girl, don't do it, don't do it. Soon after, Daj was out of a job, and she knew why. Because a day later, after the request for an autograph, the cleaning company that employed her at the hotel called and said that J.Lo had complained, and she was fired over the phone because of an autograph. Now, J.Lo has denied the claim. She was tweeting out saying like, thought you knew me better than this, would never get anyone fired over an autograph. First I heard of this was on Twitter, and it's like, okay, maybe you didn't say fire her, but you obviously complained because somebody wanted an autograph. In 2003, Endeavor Talent Agency reportedly gave J.Lo an ultimatum to either leave them or fire her manager Benny Medina, as they found him too high maintenance, at least according to news outlets. Well, in a shocking move, J.Lo did fire Medina, but then also fired her Endeavor agent Patrick Whitesell and signed with rival agency CAA. Now, this was during the time when J.Lo and Ben Affleck were a couple. Whitesell had long represented Ben Affleck and had added J.Lo a couple months before the firing. Despite gaining traction in her acting career and, once again being the girlfriend of Ben Affleck at the time, the agency agency still chose to put her in a tough position. And while it was J-Lo who kind of put the end on the professional relationship, Endeavor seemingly made it public that they didn't value her enough to figure out how to make things work with her manager. So see if you can spot the unsubtle shade in Endeavor's statement about the fallout, which attempted to make the firing seem like a mutual decision, while also throwing Medina under the bus and firing at J-Lo's decision making. Here's the quote, folks. Endeavor has parted company with Jennifer Lopez. Jennifer is an incredibly talented actress and a good friend, and we wish her much continued success. However, as an agency, we were no longer able to work with her manager, Benny Medina. We thought it best for Jennifer and Endeavor that we part company at this time. You literally could have taken out that entire second last sentence. We did not need that. You could have just been like, oh, we wish her much continued success, and ended it there. Would have been a lot less messy. Forbes credits makeup artist Scott Barnes with creating the signature technique that became J-Lo's iconic glow, which in turn became the preferred look of the era. The two had worked together since the year 2000, whether it was serving as J-Lo's personal makeup artist for her role in 2019's Hustlers or for the Super Bowl halftime performance. And while their working relationship and friendship spans 2 decades, there was a time where Barnes apparently didn't have her love. He spilled the beans during an interview on the Jeff Probst show after rumors circulated that he and 2 others leaked plans of J-Lo and Anthony's secret marriage. J-Lo's team completely shunned Barnes. He's like, nobody would talk to me. It was like I had like an incurable disease. And when the truth came out that Barnes did not leak the news or even know about the wedding ahead of time, he got a phone call, presumably from J-Lo, and he was like, oh, it was a call where it was like, hey, it was a big misunderstanding. You know, we have like a lot of stuff coming up and I really miss you, so let's just get back to work. And although Barnes was extremely diplomatic in his recounting of the temporary fallout, it's clear that he never got a direct apology. And by the way, they reconciled, but he's still choosing to talk about it, so obviously he's hurting. An ex-private airport employee called J-Lo a nightmare person on Twitter before dishing out several stories about negative interactions with the superstar. Twitter user @MoiraWebb claimed she worked at a private airport on Long Island when J-Lo was in a relationship with Mark Anthony. She's like, I have so many stories about her being a rude and nasty person. It's gross to say, but each time she fails at anything, it delights me. That's like next level hating. Like, surely, okay, we know J-Lo's bad, but like, is it that bad? So Webb told like 5 separate stories on Twitter about interactions with Lopez, and they range anywhere from the bizarre to just plain mean, but it sure seems like J-Lo doesn't care about people beyond herself. We have one of them today. So she had a standing catering order, even if she was only going like 20 minutes away, and one of those things on that rider was a KFC bucket. And she was flying out in the morning before KFC usually opens, and her team freaked out that they didn't have it there. She, you know, our narrator, was demanded to go get some. She was given some cash by the team. So she drove like a bat out of hell, begged KFC to open early, make one for her, and they were excited because they're like, oh my god, it's J-Lo! And they made one, but like our poor girl didn't have nearly enough cash, so thankfully they were like, okay, let's give you like a discount, we'll cover it, whatever. And as she's speeding back, she looks up and she sees the flight taking off. Even though like her entire team was like, she's not gonna leave without this KFC. They just sent her to do that as a punishment, I guess.
Naomi Campbell. She is notoriously one of the most difficult celebrities to work with. She was one of 6 models of her generation declared supermodels by the fashion industry and the international press, and I think it's safe to say that this got to her head, and she thought that she could behave however she wanted. Back in 1998, Georgina Galanis filed a lawsuit claiming Naomi became physical with her while they were on a work trip in Canada. Amongst the shocking allegations Georgina brought to light, she alleged that Naomi grabbed her by the throat and even hit her with a phone. Along with that, in 2004, her maid claimed to have been slapped in the face. In 2005, her personal assistant alleged Naomi had smacked her around the head with a BlackBerry, while another associate accused her of coming over like Mike Tyson after they wore the same dress to an event. In 2006, she was arrested on suspicion of attacking her drugs counselor, while a former housekeeper sought damages and claimed that she was a violent super bigot. Now in 2007, she was sentenced to community service after assaulting her New York maid, who had required stitches after Naomi beat her around the head with a crystal encrusted phone when she couldn't find a certain pair of jeans. Yeah, that sounds absolutely horrible, and I have no idea why anyone would want to work for her. Then an online user spoke of their experience with Bruce Willis and said this. His movie Hostage was being filmed in several locations of Azusa Canyon. I was a member of a non-profit charity organization that had a sizable gated lot off the base of the canyon, and our location was was perfect for many production crews as they could leave all their equipment safely stored overnight. The lot was rented quite often for that purpose. During filming, Mr. Willis would come and go through the lot, where his trailer was also located. Occasionally, a member of the organization would approach him to greet him or ask him for a quick pic, and each and every time without fail, Mr. Willis would stare the person down and quite often say something to them that included his obviously well-rehearsed F-bombs. One instance in particular, I was arriving with one of the senior members of the organization for an early morning meeting. We, after clearing the massive security detail to get into our own lot, parked the car and proceeded to walk towards the entrance of the building. Like any normal human being in a social situation, we wished good morning to the people that we happened to be passing. Honestly, I didn't even realize who it was until he turned his head in our direction and said, "F you." Yikes. On the website Quora, Emily Watford, who worked at the arena where J-Lo once performed, detailed how her niceness is so fake disgusting. Everything in her room had to be white, she made them close and sanitize the entire child playroom for only her kid or kids, whatever she has. And that isn't too bad. If you got the money to do that, then do it, she said. But Emily added what was bad that a doorman looked at her and apparently she hates when staff look at her. So she started yelling at whoever about it in front of the doorman like he wasn't there. He said, "So much for Jenny from the block," as she got him fired. Now that's not all though, as according to HuffPost UK, the singer has reportedly banned staff from working on her new home from talking or making eye contact with her. And she allegedly gave these requirements for a new assistant. The person has to be graceful under pressure, have thick skin, and be resourceful in foreign countries. You'll be on call 24/7, you have to change diapers, work on little sleep, and cook if the butler is away. Now, according to several of J-Lo's former staff members, Jennifer earned herself the nickname Paylo because she paid her staff around 50% less than they could make elsewhere. Now she just treats people like trash and wants to be treated like a queen. Harold Ramis was directing the film Groundhog Day and Bill Murray was starring in it, although Bill was not behaving properly. Now Bill was so fed up with the studio and Harold that he would dodge phone calls, be late to shoots, and basically just blew them off. The communication between himself, the studio, and the director was so poor that they suggested Bill get an assistant to deal with all of that. So he hired a personal assistant who was profoundly deaf, did not have oral speech, only spoke American Sign Language, which Bill did not speak, nor did anyone else in the production, Harold told Entertainment Weekly. But Bill said, "Don't worry, I'm going to learn sign language," and I think it was so inconvenient that in a couple weeks he gave that up. That's anti-communication, you know, let's not talk. Yeah, now that's just insane for everyone involved, and that poor assistant, they probably had no idea what was going on. Now we all know in 2022, Amber Heard had a defamation trial with her ex-husband Johnny Depp. As part of that trial, her former assistant Kate James testified, and she worked for Amber from 2012 to 2015. Now in her testimony, she made some pretty shocking allegations about what working for her was really like. Kate claimed in court that Amber would often scream at her and allegedly use illegal substances. She also accused Amber of spitting in her face during her employment, but that was hardly the first time Kate made some dark allegations about her former employer. You see, 2 years earlier, she spoke out against Amber in another trial, this time when Johnny Depp took on the British tabloid The Sun over an op-ed piece Amber had written for the outlet. Now that time, Variety reported that Kate accused Amber of sending her rude and hurtful messages early in the morning on more than one occasion. She also claimed that Amber took her personal story of being an SA survivor and used it as her own. Now Amber had a different version of this story though, as when she took the stand, she spoke out against Kate's allegations and overall character, as she told the court that her former assistant was not easy to work with. Kate's behavior was horrible, she stated. Now, per NBC News, Graham Chase Robinson accused Robert De Niro of allegedly touching her without her permission and making lewd comments while in her presence. Not only that, but Graham said she was asked to do tasks that she wasn't expecting while working for the actor, including household chores and even scratching him on the back. Now, as for what Robert had to say about the allegations, he made it pretty clear he wasn't going to co-sign on his former assistant's take of events, with his lawyers telling Us Weekly, "The allegations made made by Graham Chase Robinson against Robert De Niro are beyond absurd. But that wasn't the only drama in this situation, as Graham's allegations came as a part in a countersuit. Roberts Canal Productions had actually filed a lawsuit against Graham that same year, accusing her of not doing her job properly. Now, the company alleged that she had a tendency to buy things using her company card, and also supposedly enjoyed watching TV while she was supposed to be working. Now, Robert also speculated per TMZ that Graham had only made her allegations in retaliation for the initial lawsuit. Now, in recent years, BuzzFeed News spoke to former employees on the Ellen DeGeneres show, all who remained anonymous. They said they were fired after taking medical leave or bereavement days to attend family funerals. One employee, who claims that she was fed up with comments about her race, essentially walked off the job, and honestly, good for her. Others said they were instructed by their direct managers to not speak to Ellen if they saw her around the office. Now, most of the former employees blamed executive producers and other senior managers for the day-to-day toxicity, but one former employee said that ultimately it's Ellen's name on the show and she really needs to take more responsibility for the workplace environment. Now, if she wants to have her own show and have her name on the show title, she needs to be more involved in what's going on, one former employee said. It's also said that Ellen only appears to be bubbly and down to earth on camera, but backstage she is demanding and rude to her staff. In fact, the same anonymous source revealed that after hours, staffers get together and talk about Queen Ellen. A few had even quit because of her behavior. And what is Ellen's behavior to her staff, you may ask? Well, apparently she explodes at staffers over the tiniest things. Yeah, Ellen doesn't sound like a fun person to work for. And finally, in 2012, Lady Gaga's assistant Jennifer O'Neill brought a lawsuit against her that claimed that the singer owed her roughly $390,000 for more than 7,000 hours of overtime. During her 13-month stint as the singer's helper, Jennifer said she was expected to be on call 24/7, wake the star up, and even make sure she had a towel waiting after a shower. She added that the two frequently slept in the same bed because Jennifer never had her own hotel room while on tour and was required to address Gaga's needs throughout the night. Now, that is just wrong. The Daily Mail also revealed that during a videotaped deposition, Gaga was quoted as saying, "Jennifer is an effing hood rat who is suing me for money that she didn't earn." Yikes.
Before Kim Kardashian leaves the house on a typical day, there will be numerous outfit changes. At least 5 or 6 if her former husband was there, an insider told Radar. Kim will tell one of her assistants to fetch more clothes from her massive closet. And then afterwards, she's gonna discard them on the floor. She's never gonna bother to hang them back up. That's what the assistants are for. And they also have to restock her closet right. If not, they're in trouble. According to the source, Kim is very particular about how she wants sweaters folded. And in one incident, a staffer didn't do it up to her standards, so Kim took one sweater out of the middle of the stack, completely messing up what was just done. Kim's closet was the holy land in the home, and she wanted it to look pristine at all times. She even had staffers stay late at night to organize it after returning from any kind of event. Britney Spears' former longtime assistant and friend, Felicia Collada, spoke out about her notoriously controversial conservatorship on a couple of occasions. But one of the most shocking claims came when she pretty much confirmed what fans already knew, that Britney's conservatorship had seemingly driven a wedge between her and her inner circle. Who had been by Britney's side since the very start of her fame in the late 1990s, was very candid in the 2021 documentary. The New York Times presents Controlling Britney Spears, claiming she felt Britney's dad, Jamie Spears, had pushed her out of Britney's life. It slowly became where I wasn't allowed by her side and wasn't allowed to have a conversation without other people present, which was very odd, Collada said, suggesting those involved in the conservatorship left Britney isolated. I don't have any way of getting in touch with her at this point. All the numbers that I have for her now are changed. Lindsay Lohan's assistant rolled on her when he spoke to cops after her car accident on Pacific Coast Highway back in 2012, and that's a big reason why things took the turn they did in the justice system, according to TMZ. Cops interviewed Lindsay's assistant at the time, Gavin, shortly after the crash, and this was at the hospital where Lindsay was being treated. And according to law enforcement sources, he told police he was riding in the passenger seat when the accident occurred, and Lindsay was driving. So as you now know, Lindsay told the cops she was a passenger in her Porsche, but authorities didn't believe her, and lying to cops gets somebody in a lot of trouble. Gavin's statement was the final nail in the coffin, when he said he saw Lindsay behind the wheel. Via Twitter, he also posted comments directed at Lindsay, urging her to get help. At Lindsay Lohan, after bailing you out last night, I hope and pray you get the help you so desperately need, he wrote. We are all rooting for you. And shortly after, he posted another message, writing, life is not a movie, it's a reality that needs to be faced. Ouch. Mariah Carey's former personal assistant, Leanna Azarin, claimed she was subjected to battery and harassment during her approximately 2 years of employment before being wrongfully terminated by the singer in 2017. Well, that's according to a lawsuit filed with the Los Angeles Superior Court on the same day that Carey sued Leanna, accusing her former assistant of secretly filming embarrassing videos in violation of a non-disclosure agreement and trying to extort her out of $8 million. According to a copy of Leanna's 32-page complaint, she says she was hired by Carey in September of 2015 at a salary of $250,000 per year, which eventually increased to $328,500. Leanna claimed the job entailed her to be on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to assist both Carey and the singer's former manager. According to the lawsuit, Leanna claims the manager subjected her to verbal and physical harm, including repeatedly ridiculing her about her body by putting iPhones, remote controls, and utensils under certain parts. Apparently, the former manager slapped her in body parts and called her names that we can't repeat. On multiple occasions, Leanna claimed the manager tackled her to the ground and then urinated on her. According to the lawsuit, Carey knew about and was present for much of the alleged mistreatment, but permitted it to continue. And when Leanna complained about the manager's conduct in October of 2017, she was fired 1 month later. So she was suing for battery, discrimination, harassment, and wrongful termination. The manager's attorney couldn't be reached for comment on the allegations. But according to People, Carey's lawsuit accuses her former assistant of being a grifter, a peeping Tom, and an extortionist, because all of these secret videos were filmed, and apparently Leanna claimed if she released it, it would be personally embarrassing and professionally damaging to Mariah Carey. Leanna displayed the intimate videos to her friends and co-workers and said that if she was ever let go, she'd sell them for a profit and buy herself a home. While some may assume The Devil Wears Prada is an exaggeration of how Vogue head honcho Anna Wintour operates, Amy Odell, the author of Anna the Biography, has learned that the magazine executive can really act as dramatic as the character that was portrayed famously by Meryl Streep. For the book, Odell chatted with some of the fashionistas' former assistants, and since they spelled the T anonymously, they didn't bite their tongue. To start, an employee referred to as Assistant A revealed their workday could kick off as early as 7:30 in the morning. The first task is essentially setting up the office. So the reason you came in at 7:30 is because Anna comes in before 8. She might come in anywhere between 7:45 to 8. So 7:30 to 7:45 gives the second assistant the opportunity to gather all the things she'll need for the day, printing out or setting up her schedule, listening to the voicemails and leaving out any messages that might be urgent for her to respond to in the morning, making sure all the periodicals and newspapers that she'd want to read are set out, and then, depending on when she is definitely coming in, potentially getting her coffee and breakfast. According to one report, Anna Wintour always asks for a blueberry muffin from Starbucks, though it mostly goes untouched. Assistant C had a similar play-by-play, noting they'd arrive in the office around 7:30, then you have to respond to any emails that Anna sent over the night before. Then get your own work done. Regardless of their early start to the day, the assistants had to be available around the clock. Requests came in day and night. One assistant had dreams. They would wake up in the middle of the night and think, do I have to check my email? This was Assistant B. She's always talking to you. It would just be constant emails. She was just firing away all the time, always needing something. Khloe Kardashian has found herself in hot water with former assistants numerous times. Most recently, her former assistant, Matthew Manhard, who worked for her from 2019 to 2022, filed a civil lawsuit claiming he wasn't paid for overtime, wasn't allowed to take breaks, and worse. In a lawsuit obtained by TMZ, Manhard claimed he was let go by Khloe in November of 2022 after becoming a member of staff in January of 2019. The lawsuit claimed Kardashian fired him after he returned to work in November following a knee injury from May that prevented him from working. Christian Bale's former assistant, Harrison Chung, wrote an entire book about his time with his former employer, a book entitled Christian Bale, The Inside Story of the Darkest Batman. He wrote some of the wildest things he did for Bale, saying, if Christian was away filming on location, I would take care of his 5 pets, along with stray possums in the backyard. I would do anything from sniffing Christian's armpits for BO right before he hit the red carpet to making emergency sock runs if he was all out of clean ones. Actress Taran Manning found a horseshoe somewhere when the criminal case against her for harming her makeup artist was dismissed, with one small string attached. So Manning was arrested after she allegedly punched and kicked her makeup artist / friend / roommate after a night of heavy drinking. She was charged with causing harm and obstruction of breathing or redness circulation. The victim, Holly Hartman, declined to prosecute the case, and a judge granted an adjournment in contemplation of dismissal. To translate, if Taran keeps her nose clean and does some community service, the arrest and criminal charges go away, as if it never happened. So Holly was Taran's assistant and makeup artist for a long time, but everything ended. Naomi Campbell isn't exactly the nicest boss to her assistants, as many have claimed. Back in 1998, Georgia Galanis filed a lawsuit against Campbell, saying she struck her with her phone and grabbed her by the throat. Campbell pleaded guilty. 8 years later, another assistant named Amanda Bratt alleged she was struck in the face with a phone numerous times, according to Nicki Swift's website. Another assistant said Campbell gave insane demands. with one, Rebecca White, claiming she put 25 lily-scented candles in any room Campbell wanted. This was according to the New York Post. And finally for today, Lady Gaga, who is embroiled in quite the bitter lawsuit with her former aide Jennifer O'Neill, said it wasn't great. Jennifer O'Neill gave us mere mortals a glimpse into that when apparently Lady Gaga once claimed she was the queen of the universe, and O'Neill did not want to be her slave. So in court papers, Gaga whined that O'Neill failed in simple duties, such as laying out her toothbrush and soap so that she knew where they were. Apparently O'Neill lived large off her dime, wore her clothes, bagged the best bed on her private jet, and left poor Lady Gaga to lug her own suitcases. Now meanwhile, the disgruntled O'Neill, who is suing Lady Gaga for $390,000 in unpaid overtime plus damages, testified she was required to sleep in Lady Gaga's bed because she didn't sleep alone, and was expected to be working and available 24/7 for an annual salary of $75 grand. Such hours and demands might seem absurd to those outside of showbiz circles, but to insiders, apparently this is par for the course. There's no such thing as having your own time, but for that minimum wage, not it.
Starting off at number 10, we have Christian Bale. Christian Bale is not an easy person to work with, so obviously he would be an absolute pain in the to work for. And after a leaked voice recording showed Bale screaming at his cast on a film, people finally understood how bonkers that he actually is. And his assistant Harrison Chung had such a bad experience working for him that he ended up writing a book about it. The assistant said that Bale would lecture fangirls about bothering him to the point where they started sobbing. And then another time when he received a fan letter, he told Chung the fan should be eliminated with a screwdriver thrust through the eyeball into the brain, which prevents any screaming. That was a quote, by the way, that's literally what he said. And apparently he didn't seem like he was joking either. And his stint working for the actor was so bad, he underwent 5 years of therapy for PTSD to get past the trauma that he put him through. And after hearing this, it makes a lot more sense that he regularly plays like, dark and twisted people. Might not be acting all that much. In at number 9, Kim Kardashian. After Kim fired her longtime assistant Stephanie Shepard, Stephanie spilled the tea on what we all want to know about working for Kim. At the time, she wrote on Instagram, "Letting go of a bad friend and self-care involves forgiving yourself for your impossible standards and knowing you are worth it." So yikes, clearly she is, talking about a certain somebody. One thing that Stephanie revealed is that Kim apparently takes 1,000 selfies a day. But also, who really is shocked? She also said she is so vain that she has a staff remove plants or objects if they're in the way of a mirror. While on holiday at Punta Mita in Mexico, Kim took 6,000 selfies on her 4-day trip. Kim is also apparently a slob. She would leave clothes everywhere and Stephanie would have to clean them up. Stephanie also said there would be old food in the refrigerator, the trash would be overflowing in the kitchen, and the bathrooms, no one would go in there. On the one hand, that's pretty gross, but Kim is a busy woman, so I can see why she would be kinda messy. That's definitely not the worst thing that she's done. In at number 8, Anna Wintour. After the movie The Devil Wears Prada, Anna Wintour is probably the first person that comes to mind when talking about people who treat their assistants terribly. And Wintour was exposed by her old assistant at Vogue, Lauren Weisberger. And her time there was so bad, she made a tell-all book about it, which was then turned into the movie that we all know and love, The Devil Wears Prada. The book and the movie portrayed the editor-in-chief as pretty much being the worst kind of boss, emotionally abusive, judgmental, and demanding. Anna actually wasn't too upset about the book or the movie, with her even saying in one interview that she's okay with anything that makes the fashion industry more entertaining and glamorous. Basically meaning that she was behind the film. And even though the movie portrays her as having ridiculous demands, it also portrays her as a successful and powerful woman who knows how to get what she wants. And I'm sure Anna Wintour didn't have any problems with that depiction of her. In at number 7, Jessica Simpson. Jessica is another celebrity that's a total nightmare to work for. And over the years, she's gone through tons of personal assistants, which is never a good sign. And most of the assistants hated working for her. So after they quit, they spilled the tea on how terrible she is. One source told the Star that Jessica Simpson would dine and dash, as in she wouldn't pay the bill when she went to a restaurant. With one assistant adding that Jessica thought her stardom was payment enough. And even nastier, apparently Jessica wears a lot of hair extensions, but when she's done using them, she literally just drops them all over the place, with the assistant saying it literally looks like an animal is on the floor, and that one's pretty gross. Does she reuse those? Hopefully not. And at number 6, Courtney Love. Courtney Love is no stranger to controversy, which is clear from the scandal she's gotten into surrounding her late boyfriend Kurt Cobain.
And when it comes to assistants, she is just as bad. One of her old assistants actually sued her in 2012 for not paying her, and the payment that she was supposed to make was like really weird, with her getting paid $30 an hour and a full scholarship to Yale. Apparently she was also not only an assistant, but also a forensic research aide, with her even having the opportunity to work on the Nirvana biopic. But the assistant claims that not only did Courtney not pay her, she also made her work overtime, didn't pay her or the scholarship, and even asked her to do illegal tasks like hiring a computer hacker and posing as a lawyer. Another bombshell was when the assistant said that Courtney Love acted with an improper and evil motive amounting to malice or despicable conduct. Not too sure what that's referring to, but it doesn't sound good. Halfway at number 5, Angelina Jolie. Honestly, having Angelina Jolie on this list is not a shocker because she seems like someone who would have some pretty strange demands. One assistant of Angelina's named Anna worked at their country estate in the south of France between 2008 and 2010. And apparently she saw Angelina and Brad fight all the time, and they would spend weeks living apart from each other. She also even said that she thought that Angelina was an alcoholic, with the assistant even claiming that when Angelina got too drunk, she would lock her 6 kids into one room. Anna even sued Angelina and Brad for $88,000 for wrongful termination after she took time off for an illness. Not great, Angelina and Brad. And at number 4, Lady Gaga. A few former assistants have spoken out against their terrible time working for Lady Gaga, with one of her assistants, Jennifer O'Neill, claiming that she was an actual monster. And apparently Gaga owed her roughly $400,000 in unpaid overtime during the 13 months that she worked for her. Apparently Jennifer would do literally everything for Gaga and was on call 24 hours a day. The lawsuit states that her duties included ordering Gaga's meals, making sure her outfits were on hand, the promptness of a towel following a shower, and serving as a personal alarm clock. The assistant Gaga had before that also had a terrible experience, with the assistant claiming that Gaga slept and took showers with her because she didn't like being alone. Honestly, that's what would be the nightmare for me. Like, not the long hours, but the fact that I have to sleep and shower with my boss. Like, I just need my personal space too much for that. And at number 3, Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins' personal assistant had a darker experience with him, and based on his public persona, it's something people would never expect. Kimberly Stokes, a former assistant, worked as Tony Robbins' live-in personal assistant and even shared her thoughts in a BuzzFeed article about him. She recalls one time where he walked into her bathroom while she was showering and dropped his towel, exposing himself. This wasn't the only time Robbins made a pass at her either. To make matters worse, Stokes was a survivor of as a child, and Robbins knew that. Another former assistant named Kate said she considered seeing Robbins naked as a part of her job, but also saw his teachings as life transforming. And the fact that multiple people have made accusations against him proves that this is really just like a bigger issue for him altogether. And at number 2, J-Lo. This one is not a shock at all to me, because I have covered tons of times how J-Lo is one of the meanest people ever. Her demands are also the most degrading, with her insisting that her employees don't talk to her or even look at her. One of the job descriptions for her assistant was actually obtained, and it read, must have thick skin, be graceful under pressure, resourceful in foreign countries. They must be on call 24/7, be able to change diapers, work on little sleep, and cook if the butler is away. And if you're J-Lo's personal assistant, you have to know when it's J-Lo's snack time. Even though she won't actually say when she's hungry, like, you just are always expected to have food waiting and know when she wants to eat. And finally, number 1, Mariah Carey. Is anyone surprised that the biggest diva in the entire music industry is on this list? Because I am certainly not. The assistant named Liana was Mariah's assistant for 2 years, until she was wrongfully fired in 2017, which led her to sue Mariah. According to a lawsuit that she filed and a 32-page complaint, she was on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for both Mariah and her former manager. It seems that Mariah's former manager, Stella Stoppler, was a huge part of the problem, and she subjected the assistant to tons of like using racial slurs when talking about her. But there were also completely disgusting things that happened there too. And allegedly Mariah's manager tackled her to the ground and then urinated on her. Liana's lawsuit alleges that Mariah knew about the abuse and was even present for a lot of it, but still allowed it to go on. After she complained, she was fired 1 month later. And this is just so insane and nasty, but also I really don't know why that assistant would want to stay working for someone that would do that to her, right? Like, instead of suing her for wrongful termination, she should probably sue her for like workplace harassment or something instead. Starting off at number 10, we have Lena Dunham. So obviously Lena Dunham was incredibly busy on the set of her show Girls, as she was the creator, writer, director, producer, and she's the star of the show. And I can understand that when you're frazzled like that, you might not be able to schedule breaks to eat. But as a solution to that problem, Lena Dunham makes her assistants feed her. Like, she'll be on set with way too much in her hands, so while she's like reading a script or something, her assistant will be holding the food that Dunham is eating. In one photo of this taking place, Lena is getting fed a quesadilla by her assistant. And for me, that is just so gross on so many levels. And handheld food is definitely a no-go from me, especially with Corona now. Like, the thought of literally eating food that someone was just touching is absolutely revolting. And at number 9, Paris Hilton. Of course, Paris Hilton just had to be on this list. And even though she befriended one of her old assistants, Kim Kardashian, it didn't stop her from low-key bossing Kim around and even talking smack about her in her confessionals on her reality TV show. But one thing that Kim exposed about Paris is that for some really high-end purses, the ladies would walk around with them totally empty so that they wouldn't ruin the bag at all. But of course, someone has to hold her stuff. And that person would be none other than her assistant. And of course, there are some rare photos showing all the stuff that the assistants are carrying around, while Paris usually has like a purse and a small dog to hold. And at number 8, Mike Myers. Mike Myers is someone who I've talked about before, and apparently his funny personality is not at all what he's like in real life. And he's incredibly rude to practically everyone. So obviously that attitude would translate over to how he treats his assistants. And he not only treats his own assistant badly, but he also is a complete pain in the ass to the PAs on the late night shows that he is on. One incident was when he was on Conan O'Brien's show, and he was seen bossing around the staff of that show, yelling at them to get him seltzer, Twizzlers, and creamer. Which is firstly just super entitled, but secondly, who even asked for like that combination of items? Like, who needs a seltzer and a creamer at the same time? And also the fact that he's bothering PAs who are incredibly busy even without Mike Myers harassing them makes the whole thing just even worse. And at number 7, Amber Heard. I didn't have Amber Heard in my last one, and a ton of you guys wanted to hear about her, so here it is. With the way that she treated her ex-husband Johnny Depp and her other past partners, it's a guarantee that she would be a nightmare to an assistant. And she is. Amber's former assistant Kate James exposed her in a legal deposition that was part of Johnny Depp's defamation lawsuit against her. According to the assistant, Amber would routinely, verbally, and mentally abuse her, usually while Amber was intoxicated with substances like MDMA, mushrooms, and wine. With Kate even saying that she would wake up on edge the morning after Amber's binges because it was common for her to get terrifying texts from Amber in the middle of the night while she was wasted. With Kate going on to say that her time working for Amber is a nightmare that she hopes she's one day able to recover from. And at number 6, Mel B. Apparently the former Spice Girl is a lot spicier than we ever would have thought, and her former assistant completely exposed her for being a shady person. Mel's former assistant was actually a former friend, which makes his treatment even more shocking. The former assistant, Gary Meditayan, filed a lawsuit against Mel after she apparently didn't pay him $200,000 while he worked as her hairstylist and personal assistant. And wow, that is a lot of money. Meditayan was also very close with Mel, but it was at the expense of his own personal life. And because he did literally everything for her, he had basically no life at all. And allegedly he couldn't see his friends or family. He also exposed some pretty dark stuff too, like how Mel at one point was drinking ridiculous amounts, and it caused her to be violent with her own kids. Gary said that at her lowest point, Mel would drink 3 bottles of wine a day and multiple tequila shots, which would make her delusional and paranoid. Halfway number 5, Christina Aguilera. Christina Aguilera definitely is not even close to the worst on this list, but her request might be the most uncomfortable. Apparently when Christina was married to her ex, Jordan Bratman, they were pretty adventurous in the bedroom, and they would role play a lot, with both of them dressing up in costumes. And I truly could not care less what you want to do with your spouse in your own bed, that is nobody's business. But it was the business of her assistant, who apparently was tasked with picking up all of the clothes and costumes off the floor. And I would definitely be using gloves or like a tong if I was forced to pick that up. Yikes, probably both. And at number 4, Khloe Kardashian. Khloe Kardashian had me really fooled. This whole time I thought she was the perfect housewife, with her house on keeping up, always being perfectly clean, and with her pantry being essentially a work of art. But apparently, that's all a lie. Even the coveted Oreo jar. And her assistant is really the person that makes that all possible. One of her assistants told Radar Online that Khloe didn't lift a finger, and one of the main jobs of her assistant is making sure that the house is spotless at all times, so it looks perfect on camera, even down to having the perfect number of cookies in her cookie jar. And even though this really isn't that insane of a request, I'm mostly just shocked because I really thought Khloe did it all herself. But Khloe definitely did have her diva moments, and allegedly if the food wasn't displayed the way that she wanted, Khloe would dump it upside down and make them do it all over again. And if that's true, that's next level. In at number 3, Ryan Gosling. Based on the characters that he plays, it would be easy to assume that Ryan Gosling is the perfect guy. He's always playing the charming and handsome guy next door that sweeps you off your feet. But when he isn't acting, he's apparently super strange. And although there's no horror stories of his assistants getting treated horribly, there are some stories that will just make you think twice about what he does behind closed doors. One random fact is that he likes getting waxed. Like, he likes the feeling of getting waxed. And as a person who has waxed my eyebrows for my whole life, I can tell you that it hurts. So that is definitely very crazy. Also, one of Ryan Gosling's housekeepers famously claimed that he walks up the stairs on all fours. Okay? And he also sleeps upside down in bed, allegedly, with his head actually at like the foot of the bed. So clearly, he might have some skeletons in his closet, because that's some weird stuff. Like, there's gotta be more. In at number 2, Selena Gomez. Selena is again another celebrity that really isn't that bad, but a former assistant exposed her for being quite the slob, which is a little hard for me to believe honestly because she always seems like so prim and proper, but I guess that is the Disney machine in action. But according to her assistant, she leaves her dishes lying around, and in the assistant's words, she quote, has a lack of respect for other places and can completely trash a hotel room in less than 24 hours. And the worst part for me is that she apparently leaves makeup stains all over her bed and sheets because she doesn't wash her makeup off. And like, how can you be a celebrity and not wash your face? Like, if the whole world is looking at you, that's even more of a reason to make sure you have a really good skincare routine, come on. Hopefully she's learned from then. She'll also leave food wrappers all over the place, she doesn't clean up spills, and she also leaves her undies lying around for her assistant to pick up. So she's either very, very busy or very messy. Maybe a bit of both. And in at number 1, Naomi Campbell. So I didn't know this before doing this video, but apparently Naomi Campbell is a nightmare on set. There are tons of documented cases of her just being terrible. And that attitude also translated to her assistants, which she treated horribly. And the most famous incident of this terrible treatment was when she threw her phone at one of her assistants, Amanda Brack. And yikes, that is like on another level. Amanda spoke more about everything when she made an appearance on the Tyra Banks show, saying that Naomi attacked her at least 3 times, spat in her face, and even cut up her passport and threw it in a swimming pool. And like, why a person would ever do that is truly beyond me. Like, what? She also spilled the tea on the phone incident, saying that while Naomi was stressed about flights and luggage, she slammed the phone into her face. And Naomi's hairdresser intervened and basically saved Amanda. But that was not her only nightmare interaction with an assistant. Amy Castaldo also speaks of how she was subjected to horrible treatment, and she endured things like headbutting, biting, pulling her to the ground by her hair, and calling her degrading names. And apparently the phone throwing thing is something that she does like pretty often, and she's also hit a former housekeeper in the face with a phone too. And wow, this woman is an absolute nightmare.
At number 10, Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey isn't the nicest person ever. We already know this. She's had run-ins with the paparazzi, which have not gone over well. She's had some bad relationships with others. She's known for being something of a diva. The theme here is that Mariah doesn't really treat people with the respect that they deserve, and this is probably why she's been sued for this kind of thing before. There was a lawsuit from one of Mariah's former assistants that claimed that the singer peed on her, ridiculed her body, and called her some pretty rude names. Her former assistant said that she was hired by the singer to be on call 24/7 and assisted both Mariah and her manager. Though she was paid a salary of $250,000 a year, this wage couldn't cover up the torment that she sustained from Mariah. But her case wasn't the only one up against the singer at the time. While this case was being disputed, included, Mariah had just settled one with her former manager, which cited breach of contract, harassment, and unpaid wages. It seems like though she pays her people well, she doesn't treat them as well as she should. Many other employees have had similar horror stories, which just shows that maybe working for the Queen of Christmas isn't as holly jolly as you might think.
And at number 9, Christian Bale. Christian Bale is definitely the person I would want to work for the least, because he uses intimidation and threats of physical harm towards his assistants. One of his former assistants had such a bad experience working for the star, he actually wrote a whole book exposing him. The book's called Christian Bale: The Inside Story of the Darkest Batman. It was an inside look into the negative experiences the assistant witnessed while working for him. Apparently one time fans approached Bale for an autograph, but they ended up running away crying because of how mean he was. Another time Bale got fan mail sent to his home, and Bale told the assistant that the fan should be quote eliminated, adding quote, a screwdriver thrust through the eyeball into the brain prevents any screaming. Let me know how it goes. Things were so bad the assistant was diagnosed with PTSD afterwards.
At number 8, Naomi Campbell. Supermodel Naomi Campbell has been in the fashion industry for over 30 years. Over this time, she's had her fair share of scandals and feuds which have painted Naomi as the industry's mean girl. She's known for having had violent outbursts, and Naomi has been accused of being violent on 11 occasions and has been convicted of harming others 4 times. Some of the reported violent incidents include the model physically harming her assistant, grabbing her by the throat and beating her with a phone, harming another assistant and allegedly holding her hostage, throwing her phone at a housekeeper, and other accounts of emotional and physical distress. Out of these incidents, the model has been sued on multiple occasions, and they all mostly just settled out of court, but she was required to take an anger management class on top of all of her payouts. There's been some things that have been covered up, but luckily these days Naomi doesn't seem to be harming others like she used to and has moved on from this dark time.
And at number 7, Kim Kardashian. Kim Kardashian was sued by 7 former staff members in May of this year. The employees claimed that they were not paid enough or given breaks while employed at her California home. The lawsuit claimed that the staff never received pay stubs and weren't paid on a regular basis. They also were not given any breaks for meals or rest, and they weren't paid for all the hours they worked, along with other issues regarding compensation. But Kim claimed this was not true and that she was not responsible for paying these employees. Apparently they worked for another company and were paid through this third party. Kim's spokesperson said, quote, Kim is not party to the agreement made between the vendor and their workers. Therefore, she's not responsible for how the vendor manages their business.
At number 6, Marilyn Manson. This year, a lot of dark information came out about singer Marilyn Manson. Multiple women came forward recounting their awful experiences with Manson, saying that the singer had harmed them severely. Some celebrities were part of the group of people who spoke out against the singer, but on top of that, one of Marilyn's assistants has also spoken out against the singer and even filed a lawsuit against him for having endured so much while working for him. The singer's assistant claimed that he had tried to kiss her, touch her inappropriately, and even made her work 48 hours straight. It was also claimed that Manson lured his assistant into working for him with promises of quote, artistic collaborations and creative opportunities. End quote. The assistant said that she lived in constant fear of one of his violent outbursts, and she said that she felt used, comparing herself to a piece of meat. To think that any of this happened to the people affected by Manson's actions is absolutely heartbreaking, and justice needs to be served.
Halfway, number 5, Sharon Stone. Stone was sued by her former nanny after that nanny accused her of violating labor laws. The nanny also claimed that Stone made derogatory comments about her ethnicity. The nanny is of Filipino heritage and claims she was, quote, repeatedly subjected to numerous derogatory comments and slurs by Stone related to her Filipino ethnicity and heritage, mainly during her last 6 months of employment. These comments were allegedly relating to the nanny's accent. Apparently the nanny was told not to speak so Stone's kids would not develop an accent like hers. Stone denied the claims and said it was, quote, an absurd lawsuit with made up and fabricated claims filed by a disgruntled ex-employee who's obviously looking to get money any way she can. But only 1 year after this suit, Stone was sued by another employee, her then maid Angelica Castillo, for, quote, wrongful termination.
At number 4, Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga is one of the most famous singers out there, so you know that she makes a lot of money, but even with all of her riches, apparently she wanted to keep a lot of it for herself and not pay her staff. Back in 2011, Gaga was sued by a former assistant who claimed that the singer had cheated her out of her overtime wages when she worked alongside the singer for 13 months from 2009 to February 2010. According to the assistant, they were supposed to earn a flat rate of $50,000 annually in the first year, and in the second year of working for the singer, that rate was bumped up to 75 grand. It's still a good paycheck, but the assistant claimed that she never got her bonus overtime pay despite the fact that she had to work and be on call 24/7. Though the case was supposed to go to trial in 2013, they ended up coming to a settlement agreement before they ever entered the courtroom.
And at number 3, Celine Dion. In In 2012, Celine and her late husband were sued by their former handyman, Keith Sturdivant, for unpaid wages. This handyman worked at their Florida compound and performed duties like cleaning shutters, repairing appliances, and running errands. The lawsuit goes on to allege that Dion improperly and illegally designed Sturdivant as an exempt employee, which allowed them to avoid paying him overtime, which he is rightfully owed. Because of this, he is suing for unpaid back wages that he was entitled to during employment. At the time, he said others were also not paid what they were owed, so it wasn't clear if other people might be joining him in the suit. The suit was later settled for an undisclosed amount.
At number 2, Courtney Love. In 2012, Courtney Love got into some serious drama with one of her former assistants, and it got pretty ugly. Courtney's former assistant filed a lawsuit against the singer seeking wages, expenses, and punitive damages for quote, wrongful firing, wage and overtime violations, false promise, breach of contract, negligent and intentional misrepresentation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The assistant had nothing but negative reviews for having worked for Courtney, and she was prepared to tell the whole world about it as she was planning to publish an expose about her time with Courtney. In a copy of the book Proposal, this expose promised all kinds of inside knowledge about the celebrity, including details about how she is a quote, alleged hoarder, media manipulator, and drug user, unquote. Nothing ever came of this book, I don't think, and I'm not quite sure what happened with the rest of the case, but I for one would have loved to know what this assistant had to say because I have a feeling it would have been very juicy.
And finally at number 1, Charlie Sheen. Back in 2015, Charlie Sheen was sued for $1 million by a former staff member named Keith Fitzgerald. When Fitzgerald was originally hired in 2013, he was offered a 3-year contract with a salary of $300,000, medical benefits, and 20% incentive bonus as well. He was supposed to work for 3 years but was fired after only 5 months. Because of this inconsistency, the staff member sued for premature termination. Allegedly, Sheen didn't pay for any of his work either. The lawsuit said in part, quote, Fitzgerald's employment relationship was prematurely terminated after approximately 5 months without any explanation. Fitzgerald received no compensation whatsoever for any of the services he performed for Charlie Sheen at any time whatsoever. Sheen denied the claims and called the whole thing bogus, but the suit was later settled for an undisclosed amount.